The NFL draft is Thursday night. Panthers own the 6th overall pick. Joining me in studio, Locked On Panthers host Julian Council. First time in the studio space.
Yeah.
Might be the last time, because now everybody can see you're taller than me. I don't like that, JC.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, but you stand tall when it comes to this draft coverage. You've had great podcasts all the way up. You can check them out basically anywhere you get your podcasts. You do one every day, especially leading up to the draft. So the Panthers have the 6th pick. In my mind, it doesn't have to be that hard, right? If one of these left tackles is there, you pick them.
Well, you are talking about the Carolina Panthers, and you know, and everyone back at home knows that it's never that simple for this team. But for me, yes, it's that simple. If Ike Ekwonu, a local kid from NC State, is there, take him. If Charles Cross from Mississippi State is there, take him. If Evan Neal from Alabama is there, take him. Take an offensive tackle. I said it the other day on Twitter, at Julian Council, by the way, that they need to stop shopping in the bargain bin. The Dollar Tree, stop doing that. Go to Crate and Barrel. Go get something that's going to last. Yes, Brady Christensen could be the answer. Got better every time he played last season at left tackle. But a year ago, he was so highly thought of that he went to the 3rd round. But Evan Neal, coming out of high school, top 10 guy, could be a top 10 pick. Same thing with Charles Cross and Ike Ekwonu. Why would you not want one of those guys? And since Jordan Gross retired after the 2013 season, they've started 16 different players at the left tackle position. Remember Daenerys Targaryen on Game of Thrones? It didn't work out for her, but she talked about stopping the wheel. Not stopping the wheel, but breaking the wheel. It's time for the Carolina Panthers to break the wheel and find their left tackle option for the next 10 years. Hopefully. So, yes, for me, it's that simple.
The Panthers and their top brass have found the TV cameras whenever there's a quarterback pro day or a combine.
Yeah.
How much stock do you put into them actually liking a quarterback enough to taking him at number 6 overall?
It's hard. If you listen to Scott Fitterer multiple times this year, he said that at 6, in the top 10, that's when you take a chance at a quarterback. And certainly with Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell from locally, went to North Carolina, Sun Valley High School, you would be kind of taking a chance on one of those guys because none of them are considered slam dunk prospects. And it's also a crapshoot. We've seen in the past, like guys like Sam Darnold, who's on his roster, top 3 pick, hasn't really panned out for him. So he says that, but also he talks about using free agency as a way to go into the draft at best player available. And Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Malik Willis, Sam Howell, none of those guys are one of the top 6 players in this draft. So if you go off of that, I would say no. But if you go off of what else he said, I would say possibly. For me, I just have a hard time truly believing that Scott Fitterer wants to build his team around one of those quarterbacks, especially with the 6th pick.
To get a team to trade up to 6, which I'm sure they'd be mighty interested in, that team's got to be chasing somebody. Who in this draft might a team be chasing, and can the Panthers work a deal, and what would you kind of like to see come out of a deal for that 6th pick?
It's tough. You look at Seattle at 9. Maybe they're a team that wants to trade up and get a quarterback, but they say they like Drew Lock. I believe that they're actively lying to themselves and everyone else by saying that, but maybe they truly do believe in Drew Lock, who got traded after they traded away Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Outside of that, traditionally you see teams trade up for quarterbacks. We saw it last year with San Francisco trading up to get not to get Trey Lance at number 3 overall. We saw the same thing with Justin Fields and Chicago Bears to go trade up to get him. There's not quarterbacks out there that you would think a team would trade up for him. Possibly maybe Pittsburgh might fall in love there at 20 with Malik Willis. But do you want to drop all the way back there? Scott Fitterer talked about on Tuesday how there's a ledge, and that ledge is at 20. There's also a ledge within the ledge, which is at 6, coincidentally where they're at. So a trade back would be nice in theory. But who really wants to do it? He says 3 to 4 teams are serious about it. How serious are they really about it when there's not a quarterback there yet, edge rusher, wide receiver, but you typically can find those every year coming out of the draft.
Julian, you want the team to go to Crate and Barrel in that 1st round.
Yeah.
I want them to go to Costco and get some value on day 2. They don't have 2nd or 3rd round picks. That's
not true. They do have a 3rd round pick. C.J. Henderson.
Okay,
Remember,
so
Scott Fitterer said that.
In retrospect, trading for C.J. Henderson last year, that's how they view it. What are the scenarios that they can get some of those back? I mean, I guess part of it would be trading the 6th pick.
Yeah.
Could they use those late round picks to move up, or could there be a player traded?
A player sounds interesting because the 6th, I want to stay there because you're going to pass up on a blue chip guy. And Scott Fitterer said he doesn't want to do that while also keeping his options open. So he's kind of really done a really good job with the smoke screen and not tipping his cap before the draft. Yeah. Now, with a player, think about Robbie Anderson. Didn't have a great year this past year, had the extension. Maybe the Panthers look at some of his social media talk with the no to Baker Mayfield. Fans feel that way. I'm sure other players in the locker room feel that way, but no one's publicly expressed that outside the reported mutual disinterest among Mayfield and the Carolina Panthers.
Included in that.
Yeah, he's definitely included. And then there was Skip and Shannon, and Skip Bayless upsets a lot of people who called him out for not being a player caliber of the way to call out the Panthers if they potentially wanted Mayfield. And he didn't like that. Also didn't like Good Morning Football when they talk about Deebo Samuel potentially being a Panther. Maybe the Panthers, if they got an opportunity, would give away Robbie Anderson, maybe a 6th-round pick, and then move back up to the 3rd round or the 2nd round. That might be the best opportunity, considering that maybe they want to stay at 6, and Scott Fitterer also doesn't want to give up any future draft capital for 2023, where they've already given him a 6th-round pick to get Stephon Gilmore, who, of course, is no longer a Carolina Panther.
If there's none of those top 3 left tackles at 6, what does that mean probably happen? I mean, obviously there was a run before. There could be some edge rushers left. Defensive back, not positions we think are the greatest needs, but still some pretty good players. What do you think what could that scenario look like?
I mean, you can never have enough depth at corner, especially. Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU, I'd imagine, would be there at 6, possibly Mod Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. There's a lot of talk of him being linked to the New York Jets, and they certainly would need him. And, hey, it's a quarterback league. It's a wide receiver league. You got to have some guys who can get after the quarterback, like an edge rusher, who can also defend those wide receivers. So an edge rusher wouldn't be bad. Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, not too long ago, was the #1 player in the country. I know there's been a lot of pre-draft lead up about, does he love football and does he have outside interests? Where the NFL, if you're not just a meathead and all about ball, they question your loyalty, which is ridiculous. It's 2022. These guys can have outside interests. If he's sitting there at 6, I'm telling you, he's got to be he's got to be higher on their board. Maybe, I don't know. I would imagine talent-wise, he's higher on their board than a quarterback. Yeah. So if you land with a corner or an edge rusher, I don't really think that's a bad scenario for the Panthers, but it's certainly not ideal if the top 3 tackles are gone before they get there to 6. That's where I would think that they would really try hard to trade back. But again, you have to have a partner who wants to trade up for a specific player.
But regardless of what happens over the next 3 days, Carolina, they've got to have a different quarterback to add to the room by training camp, right?
Yeah,
I mean, whether they go get a veteran, maybe they miss out on those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round type names. So after the draft, that's where the Panthers say they're going to kind of reevaluate that.
Yeah.
Where could things stand with Baker Mayfield and Jimmy G at that point?
Well, with Jimmy G, I think he would probably be the preferred fit here in Carolina, considering his success he's had. And he probably would fit into the McAdoo offense a little bit better than Baker Mayfield. Yeah, he's not the long-term answer, but he could be another bridge to the future where you could win with him next season. Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, and his shoulder is the issue. He's got the throwing shoulder, had surgery there, might not be able to throw until right before training camp, which means he misses OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and they're installing a new offense. Not ideal, but you can probably win with him for a little bit here, especially with the NFC not having a ton of quarterbacks. And Tom Brady's only going to be here for another year, maybe, in Tampa if he ever decides to retire actually for real. So that's where that could stand. With Baker Mayfield, it's the salary. The Browns apparently don't want to pay. They don't want to pay anything of the $18.858 million salary, which is also the same amount of money the Panthers are paying Sam Darnold to not be the answer long term for them. So if Cleveland eventually decides to stop being stubborn and picks up some of the salary, maybe the Panthers can get him in, but he still doesn't answer the question. Now, Fitterer said they're going to add to the room. He's spoken to Sam Darnold about that. They've already said that they're not concerned about Sam Darnold's feelings at all. He needs to try and get better. They need to do more to help him. If it's not going to be through the draft, then you would imagine that, it's got to be either Baker or Jimmy Garoppolo. But which of the two would they want? You would think maybe Garoppolo, but is he going to be healthy? And do they really want another quarterback with a banged-up shoulder who's also never been an MVP like former Cam Newton used to be?
All right, last question. We'll go back to the draft. Julian, if you're the general manager, how would you approach the next 3 days? Not necessarily who you would pick, but how you would utilize the picks and the value you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm staying there at 6. I'm going to try and take a tackle, potentially. I would try to find a way to get there in day 2. And I'm confident after watching how Scott Fitterer maneuvered the draft last year. We've never seen a GM do that here in Carolina. Marty Herney never was one of those guys to trade up and trade back and to be able to get those many picks like he did last year with Scott Fitterer. So I'm confident he can get back in day 2. And that's something I would try to do. I'd also try to address linebacker. Now with Damian Wilson and what his legal status is, we have no idea, as that's an ongoing legal matter, and the Carolina Panthers haven't commented any further, and we'll see what happens with the personal conduct policy the National Football League has with him and with Shi Smith, the Panthers wide receiver, who's dealing with issues down in South Carolina. So I would try to find a linebacker maybe in the middle rounds who could potentially be your linebacker next to Shaq Thompson in the future, or maybe one day replace Shaq Thompson need be. I would also try to find another lineman, preferably a defensive end who could maybe stop the run. That's something that's really hurt the Panthers, something that Scott Fitterer has talked about. They want a guy who's about that 285, 6'5 size who can set the edge and help them, because they've been really bad against the run the last couple years. And you can never have enough wide receivers, especially Shi Smith. So I would love to get another wide receiver and more depth on the offensive line. You might feel good about Austin Corbett, but he's here for 3 years. Bradley Bozeman, only a 1-year deal. Elflein might be gone after this year. Cam Irving, who's going to be a depth piece, might be gone too. Why not add another offensive lineman for a unit that has been much maligned here in Carolina for feelings like a decade?
Hey, that sounds like a good plan. I hope the Carolina Panthers have the same one.
Yeah, go ahead. Free advice, guys. Free advice.
And you can get it on Julian Council's podcast, Locked On Panthers, every single day. Got a lot to catch up on before Thursday's first round.